Welcome back to the shop, everyone. What we got going on today is I am doing a little bit of suspension work. I'm taking the car in for an alignment today, which means I need the front ride height set correctly, I need the rear ride height set correctly, I need all the rear suspension adjusted exactly as I want it. And so we're going to start off by jacking the front end of the car up. I want to raise this front end up 1/2 inch. Now, I absolutely love how tucked the wheel is in here. Unfortunately, it does still rub a little bit on when the wheel is turned and you hit a bump. So I'm going to raise this up another 1/2 inch. And hopefully that'll give me the space I need. That will also help me out when I do the BC Drag It Challenge, because I'm gonna have a buddy riding with me. He's gonna be a couple 100 pounds, and then we have gear in the back. So the car is gonna be weighed down a little bit more. So I really just want some clearance in this front end, and I need the ride height set before we get the alignment. So let's just get this jacked up, and then you've seen me adjust the ride height before, so I don't think I'm gonna really talk too much about it, but I might, who knows. Anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so under the car here, I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but I got some oil here. Looks like that might be coming out of the drain plug, but then there's also some oil here on the front side of this cover plate. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of checking just to see where this oil is coming from. I mean, I do see some up here right on the bottom of the oil pan, which kind of leads me to believe that this rear oil pan seal might be quite fucked, which wouldn't surprise me. I think when I pulled the oil pan down a couple of times, you know, it might have ripped and whatnot, and I don't think I used any sealer on the pan side, so the gasket might not be sealing 100%. But you know, I've put, you know, quite a bit of kilometers on the car, so this little tiny leak here isn't even like pooling on the ground under the car, so I'm really not concerned about it. I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. But yeah, I just want to get my inspection camera up here in the bell housing and just make sure it's on this front side that it's leaking, not on the back side. So yeah, let's just quickly grab that camera. Yeah. Cool, so we're good to go there. So yeah, it's gonna be the oil pan leaking a bit. I mean, I could try tightening these two bolts up a little bit, see if that helps, but I'm not, as I say, I'm not too worried about it. That's kind of ridiculous that it's leaking. Oh well, I guess let's, actually, while I got this up in the air, let's kind of go over things and just kind of make sure everything's good to go under the front of the car here. Been doing that drag and drive in a few weeks, so let's just kind of go over, make sure shit's tight. Yeah, front bolts are still tight, although I didn't put any blue on the body, so that could have spun in there. That would not be fun. Do I have, oh yeah. Okay, that's all good, that's all good. Yeah. Yeah. Be able to. Okay. Ooh, I lost a bolt for my coils on this side, and I lost a little spacer. Shit. We have to get in touch with Maven and see if I can get them to send me out some replacement parts. Because my two coils here are just kind of loosey-goosey. Shit. That's not good. Okay. I'll have to figure something out for that in the meantime. Make sure that top is tight. It has a lock washer on it, but either I didn't tighten it or it came loose. Okay, that's fine. Not the end of the world. No, we're not leaking anything. Block looks good, head looks good. Now what's crazy is this right side header always has an O2 issue. And what I mean by that is the O2 reading is just kind of all over the place. And looking at the headers, there might be a leak right at the flange itself. So nothing I can do about that. That's fine. The left side reads accurately, so we'll just leave that. Everything here looks pretty good. Oh, I need nuts on my engine plates. all the nuts have backed off my 2 engine plate bolts. So that is really, really bad. So I absolutely need to get some, you know, some holes drilled or whatever and get some nuts and bolts in there, right? Maybe I didn't use lock nuts, which I absolutely will now. Ooh, oh shit. Oh, this is not good. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. Fuck. Okay, so let's go through some of the issues here. So, some of the things I found. The spacer in this nut, gone. So, my coils are just flopping around. That's not good. Look at this balancer bushing. I don't know if it's a bushing or seal, whatever it is, but this is starting to come out the back. So if that comes out the back, this balancer is fucked, and that's gonna give me a hell of an imbalance. Like you can see on the front here, it's the seal is, you know, 1/8 of an inch out the front, but up here, let's see, can I get you a good angle at this? It's starting to pull out the back. Fuck. So I may need a 50 ounce balancer for this sooner rather than later. Shit. I mean, it's a good thing I'm checking this out now. It looks like I got a water leak out of the water pump from that top bolt. That, not a big deal. I mean, it's kind of dry, so it's probably not fresh. Not too worried about that happening. Alternator is looking okay. Okay, power steering, I can get there. Oil pressure is good, okay. Yeah, power steering pump lines are fine. Looks like a bit of a weep here, not even a leak. The lines there are okay. That looks like it's just getting some oil from the drain plug. No big deal there. Oil filter's fine. Pump looks good from this side. Coils here are good and solid. Okay. Yeah, okay. So this side looks all right. Okay. Not the end of the world, anything that's going on here. Well, that balancer is a problem. Yeah, that balancer is a problem, because as I say, if that seal comes all the way out of the balancer, bad things are gonna happen. I'm gonna have massive vibration, or the entire front part of the balancer is just gonna come off, then the supercharger pulley comes off, all the belts come off. That's real bad, so we need to fix that. Luckily I have 3 weeks to fix it. Other than that, the rest of the things under there look okay. Nothing too terrible. Yeah, I guess let's drop this back down on the ground, torque the wheels, carry on with life. right, next on the docket, this breather that I have right here. I completely filled the fuel cell the other day and I had fuel puking out the breather. That is not a good thing because the breather is just going down to a filter, and then off the filter it just goes to the ground. So effectively I parked at a car meet and there was fuel puking out of this breather just onto the ground, which, you know, my exhaust is under the car. Fortunately the exhaust wasn't hot enough to actually do anything, but, you know, possibility exists that if you're puking fuel onto the ground that, you know, you might light your car on fire. So the plan is I have like a 120 degree fitting on here right now, going to a chunk of 10 AN hose to the filter. We are replacing that. We're going to put a 90 on this. I'm going to have the hose come up here on the inside of the tank. It's going to come over here, and then from here we're going to do 1, maybe 2 loops, and it'll go down from there into the filter. Because yeah, I don't know, you probably can't see the swell, but it's just 120 degrees off of this filter. So if the fuel cell is here, it just does this small loop and then to the ground. So that's not good. So I'm just going to get right into fixing this. So yeah, I just undid the old breather, pulled it off, and this big puddle of gas was stuck in this line because all this did was go like this. So as soon as I hit the brakes, fluid entered here and got trapped right here. And this is just a bad setup because all this fuel was trapped in this line. And as I said, at the car meet that I went to the other day, gas had actually just, a bunch of gas puked out of this filter onto the ground, which is not great. So by moving this to the other side, effectively what we're doing is, this was on the tank like this. So cell sits here flat, this sits on top. So if I hit the brakes, fuel would rush to the front, enter here, and then of course gravity is going to pull it down to here. And if there's enough fluid coming out, it's going to carry the gas all the way through and out. Not great. So now what I'm doing is, instead of having my breather just directly off the cell and then directly downward, I have this at a 90, and I'm gonna do my best to get the cable kind of going uphill from the cell. Uphill, 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 and then it's gonna turn 90, come to the back of the cell, or to the back of the cell compartment, and then, you know, have it as high up as I can the entire way. And then from there, I'll do a loop underneath the cell, come back up above the cell, and then do another loop under. So the plan is 2 loops, and then have the filter exit below the fuel cell. Now the reason why I want the filter below the cell, if I go upside down, the gas is only going to go to it'll only be even with the fuel, with the fuel in the cell. So in theory, gas shouldn't be puking out of the filter if I'm upside down. That's the plan. right, so what am I doing right now? Right now the roof is just metal. Yeah, there's nothing, you know, really nice about it, and it's kind of hot in the summer right now, so I got some more sound deadening slash heat shield. This is just some cheap crap off Amazon. I don't want to use my good stuff, because my good stuff, I'm going to be replacing this roof skin because I completely fucked it up when I tried to, you know, do the sunroof panel. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to get this laid in. I might do some along the back pillars as well, and more kind of in the back, just to try and kill as much sound as I can from this thing and just see how it does. So we just got the sound deadener in the car. Didn't show painting at all. I did one coat and then I painted another coat off camera. But what I'm gonna do now, while I'm just in limbo waiting for the balancer to come, is I'm gonna jack the car up and I'm gonna do some more exhaust work. So the passenger side exhaust in the rear is still hanging down pretty low compared to the driver's side. And when I took this in for its alignment, it goes up on the alignment rack. So there's you know, a couple of like ramps that go up to the alignment rack, and then the front end goes on first flat and then the back end comes up. Well, the V-band clipped, just like, you know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, but it clipped the alignment rack and didn't allow the car to go forward anymore. And that's bad because I'm gonna be getting on a ferry here soon. And to get onto the ferry, you gotta go up this ramp, and then at the top, there's a crest, and then you gotta go straight. So I have a sneaking suspicion what's gonna happen is if I try to go with it as it is, it's gonna go up, and then as I crest, it's gonna kind of get caught. I'm just gonna have to like punch it and like might tear some shit up. I don't wanna do that. So even though you're probably thinking, Ben, you've already done a ton of exhaust work. You built a new exhaust this winter. You switched out the mufflers. Yep, doing more exhaust work to get that muffler up and out of the way and just into a place where I can actually hopefully you know, not bottom out when I get on the ferry. So that's all I'm going to talk about this. Switch over to time lapse. Let's go. Well, folks, please join us next week for the anticlimactic finish of more exhaust work. That is all the time that we have for this episode. So as always, if you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.